It can be hard to describe what actually makes a good manager or leader, and in fact there's many management theories around it. But today I just wanted to have a chat with you about transactional versus transformational leadership style, because I think it's really topical post-pandemic, but also perhaps when you're earlier on in your management career, you focus a lot on transactional management style, and actually like switching over to a more transformational leadership style might be more effective for you in the long run. So if you're a new manager or you're perhaps new to a team, you might just benefit from this video, and I'd love to hear your comments in the sections below about if this has helped you. So a transactional leadership style is probably one we're all quite familiar with, and it's certainly one that I experienced earlier on in my career. And that's around telling people what to do, checking they've done it, and then telling them what to do next. So it's a very directional leadership style, and although can be appropriate in certain situations, limits what you can do. Because as a manager, you can only tell so many people what to do so many times, either before you get bored of it, or basically there's something called the span of control, which means that you can only really manage 8 people or so effectively like that. So if you're moving up into a bigger team or you're in a new and growing organisation, that transactional leadership style will limit how much you can actually do in a day. If you don't switch your style up, you might find yourself being stressed or overworked or working longer hours to compensate for having that style. So the first thing you can do to see if you've got a transactional style is see if most of your conversations or emails with people are telling them about what to do or how to do it, rather than asking them about outputs or outcomes. If you're focusing on the process of what someone needs to follow, then that perhaps shows you've got a transactional leadership style. And don't get me wrong, that absolutely has its place, particularly if you're dealing with very junior people or people who are new to a job. You absolutely have to tell them what to do and how to do it. So if you find yourself doing that over a longer period of time, that's not going to be the most helpful for you or actually your team, and will limit growth and development. A transactional style also is very set up for hierarchical organisations. It uses carrot and stick type approaches to reward and recognition, and in fact punishment. So if it focuses more on doing the right behaviours or doing the right things at the right time, you might find it is part of a transactional leadership style. Transactional leadership style is actually also well suited to organisations which are in a very steady state, or you're thinking about manufacturing or those types of industries where you need to automate almost the processes and get the same results every time. However, most organisations now are in a more dynamic environment and are more subject to growth and change, and so that kind of transactional leadership style won't adapt that well to the changing environment. I've definitely had bosses who try to treat people like a process, or almost trying to automate what people are doing, but of course people can't be automated. So with the transactional leadership style, you're missing a lot out of like the personal dynamic of leadership and management, and ultimately probably not getting the best out of your team. A transactional leadership style may also stop your team from developing and growing, and ultimately stop them moving up their hierarchy of needs by Maslow. So you're stuck in this sort of safety and security zone, which is fine earlier on, but actually as your team grows and develops, isn't good in the long run. So you stop them moving up into growth, development and self-actualization, and ultimately you're disempowering the team by having this transactional style. The long-term impact on your team is they can become demotivated or frustrated that they can't use their own initiative or creativity, and may lead to higher turnover in your team, or people being less fulfilled in their jobs. So we've talked about all the reasons why transactional leadership style may not be the most effective. So what does a transformational leadership style look like? Well, for a starter, it moves away from the process and focuses more on outcomes and outputs. So you agree with your team or your individual, what are the key things you're looking for, the key deliverables and the timeframes you need them for, and then you back away from the day-to-day. You let them get on with it. You have regular check-ins with them to understand if they're on track or if they've got any problems or challenges, but ultimately it's for them to drive. Now, how I've used this really effectively in my team is we had a set of decisions that needed to be made, and I thought I knew the right answer. But instead of me just coming up with a solution, which would have been quite a transactional response, I threw it out to the team and got them to create the solution. Actually, what they did is come up with a much simpler and better solution than I had in my head, where I'd overcomplicated it, but also they were bought in and had ownership and accountability of that process. So it solved 2 problems. It was a much better solution, but also my team were more engaged in doing it and felt that it was more on their responsibility. The other great thing that I like about transformational leadership styles is that you don't have to be the boss to be a transformational leader. With transactional leadership, that relies on hierarchy and direction, and typically you can only have one transactional leader in a team. With transformational leadership, it spreads out the accountability and responsibility across the team. And one of my favourite bits of advice I got in my career was that you don't have to be the boss to be the leader. So you might have played on a sports team or been part of another kind of group or dynamic where actually the person in charge wasn't the person who actually most people look to for advice or guidance. And transformational leadership style creates that kind of fostering and collaboration environment and make sure that everyone's strengths can be recognised and that actually you share the load of leadership. A transactional leader relies perhaps on their own power, influence or charisma to get things done. A transformational leadership style focuses on values, visions and shared goals for the team, rather than a transactional leadership style which focuses more on the boss's vision and hierarchy. So it just creates a more collaborative and inclusive culture and spreads that leadership load across the whole team. Transformational leadership styles I think are going to be really effective over the next couple of years as we move out of the pandemic. Most of us have had to be very proactive to respond to changes that are happening, but also it's about creating innovation and driving the team forward. Transactional leadership styles are often about maintaining the status quo or maintaining things as they are, whereas a transformational leadership style is about becoming fit for the future and moving forward. So here are a few things you can do to switch your style from transactional to transformational if you think that might be something that you're doing. The first thing to do is to step away from process, but to focus more on outcomes and outputs. Establish those with the team, make it clear about what needs to be delivered and when, but then back away and let them get on with it. However, most people in a team also need to understand not only what the final destination is, but also what the journey looks like. So build in regular checks of measurements and improvements or progress so that they know that they're doing a good job, they're on the right track, but equally they can see how their own performance is getting better over a period of time. If you just leave it to the end of the project, which perhaps might be several months away, it might lead you to demotivate your team or for them to lose interest. So these regular check-ins and performance reviews allow you to understand how they're doing, but also they can see their own progress and own that. And finally, as a manager, you're going to need to take more of a coaching approach to your meetings. So rather than a mentor, which perhaps shares what they did in that situation or tells people how they did it, a coaching approach is different in terms of you are getting people to solve their own problems. So the types of questions you need to ask are more open and you allow individuals to get to their own solutions and remove their own obstacles. This is great for a number of reasons. Again, it means that you don't have to be the font of all knowledge and come up with every solution. It stops your team coming to you for every problem and obstacle they face. Instead, they feel empowered and have the skill set to remove those challenges themselves, and ultimately makes them more developed and more rounded individuals when they perhaps move up and take on their own leadership roles. And as I said, if you're not the boss, you can still apply the transformational leadership approach from any seat in the room. It's about shifting the team's focus from process and system to output and deliverables. And we can do that from anywhere. You can challenge on individual projects, about how you approach your own work. If you've got a transactional leader and it's slightly grating on you, you can perhaps agree with them core deliverables and ask them to sort of back off from the day-to-day. So you could say something like, I understand we need to get project X delivered by X, Y, and Z. Do you need me to do it this way or can I choose my own option? This may well open up the conversation about different ways of doing things and allow you to agree more freedom with your boss about how you approach your work. Of course, these are only two of the management styles that you can use and there are many different other ones, but I think transformational is quite a powerful leadership style. So leave a comment below if you've worked for a really good manager and the type of approach they use, or perhaps a bad manager in which you didn't get on so well. And I post content twice a week on a Wednesday and a Sunday around leadership, management and career issues. I'd love to hear your thoughts and get in touch.